Uh, Welcome to the Port of Coupeville's first meeting of 2023. I'd like to call the Wednesday, January 11th meeting to order and make sure that we have Commissioner 2 here.
I'm in attendance, yes.
And Commissioner 3.
Present.
And I'm David Day and I'm Commissioner 1. And we have staff and some guests as well. Let's begin by with item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll stand and
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
to the flag
United States
of
of
the
America
United
and to the republic for
which it stands one nation
Under
under
God.
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you. I guess I've already done the roll call, so I've screwed up the meeting already. So does anyone have any changes proposed to the agenda?
I don't have anything.
Hearing none, we'll progress. Item number 6 is commissioner action. Would someone like to offer a motion to approve the minutes of December 14th and December 28th?
So moved.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of December 14th and December 28th. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Motion's carried unanimously. The second part of item 6.1 is the approval of the vouchers. John, do you have those in front of you? Would you like to do that?
I do have that. So we need to look at my other screen though. I make a motion that the Port of Coupeville approve voucher approval document dated 1/11/2023, and for voucher numbers 23-0101 through 23-0122 for a total amount of $17,596.50, and that the payroll EFT voucher of EFT-0101 be approved for $12,307.91, and the electronic vouchers numbered EFT-0102 through EFT-0103 and for an amount of $3,143.50, and the total amount for the voucher document of $33,047.91 be approved. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Any discussion on the vouchers? All in favor of accepting the vouchers as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion is also carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. Please state your name, where you live, and if you have any information that you'd like to pass along to the commissioners, please submit it through our executive director. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
Not seeing anybody.
All right. There is another opportunity toward the end of the meeting. So let's move on to item number 8, which is the financial update. Dawn, you're on.
Okay, so as far as the IDD funds, we have $644,750.25. And in the operating fund, we have $180,384.01. We still have in our investment funds 700,000. In our investment funds for the IDD, we have $500,655.40. Now, these numbers in our balance sheet do not reflect the treasurer's activity for December. So, and actually, I received their reports about 4 hours after I submitted the reports for this meeting. So they will be updated, and I did notice on the reports that they sent, they are not going to be the final reports for the year end as well. So I will be making the entries, but then I will also have some adjusting entries to do once they have the final treasurer reports out. Other than that, as you saw, our main activity in December that caused any difference was the large bills that we did get reimbursed for. And everything in the budget seems to be in line. I don't really have anything other than what I already notated in the email to add. We received a lot of reimbursements and a lot of grant reimbursements in 2022. And I don't think, other than our activity in our projects, there was anything else that stood out. Did any of you have any questions after seeing the reports?
Commissioner Misichek.
So I printed it all out. So the Port of Coupeville Trust Fund 636, that's lease deposits, right?
Correct.
636. Okay.
And that only changes as people leave, and if we end up keeping the deposit for any reason, it gets transferred over to the operating.
And then our 656 account is a bond.
Yeah, that's a very old account with a small balance. It's been the same balance for quite some time.
$622.80. Okay. And it looks like our IDD fund 697 continues to, well, it actually had a transfer of $86,000, so it went down a little bit.
Correct.
So it's being utilized per the rules, that control that fund, right, for capital projects.
Yeah, I sent you that spreadsheet that explained how I came up with a number for transferring. And I have updated that with December's activity, because we basically did the transfer based on activity through November. I have updated it, but there's no need to make any transfer as of this time, because we have quite a few reimbursements coming in that will pay the operating account back for those funds. So there's no need to dip into IDD to help those projects.
Okay. Is everybody else
Commissioner Callahan, do
understanding?
you have questions?
None, thank you.
So Don, I'm wondering if on the balance sheet, you could explain a little bit about how at the very bottom, what the equity portion of that statement means?
Well, that is according to our entries and activity throughout all of the years of keeping the records, including your balances and your checking accounts. I do not believe that you have any assets, fixed assets entered in here other than property. So when you see the net income, that is, should be close to, let's see here, see the total checking and savings.
30.
And if you, because this is cash basis, it's a little different because we report to the Department of Revenue on an accrual basis. So the assets should match the liabilities as far as your,
Right. Okay,
and the net income is basically availability.
okay. Any other questions, gentlemen? Are
Good.
we- Go ahead, John.
I'm good.
Okay.
Other than that, it seemed like we got more printouts this time than ever before, and I guess it's the you know, some of it was data about through November, and then another one was like data through December 1 to December 31. It maybe caused the additional reports that you know, it's not like, you know, matching up dollar amounts. So
Okay,
I'm good now.
are we ready to move forward?
Comment, David, is it possible to identify the documents that we're reading from during the meeting, given the amount of financial documents we received prior to the meeting? So Dawn was just answering some questions about a document, and David had, or excuse me, John had questions on a particular document. It might be helpful for the record to identify what that document is that they're actually reading from.
I agree. My question was relative to the profit and loss report, or the balance sheet, which I believe I stated, so.
Thank you.
We can maybe screen share a specific report, you know, during those questions and all like that might help the public too.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You know, John, I just opened up all the files that I sent, and I don't see any files that had random dates on them ending in November. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reports, and they all have as of December 31st on them. Are you looking at a different email?
You know, I just printed out your financial reports, and there was one for account 697, Port of Coupeville IDD Fund.
Oh, you're looking at, are you looking
Cash
at the
balance.
treasurer's reports?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. And then the very next page was investment number 697 account.
Okay, those, you're looking
But-
at the county submitted treasurer's reports that we received late afternoon yesterday. That's what
okay.
you're looking at.
Yeah, it just seemed like duplicate reports in a way.
Okay,
Oh, and they might be if there's some adjustments. I haven't looked at them. Sometimes I get adjusting reports for the previous months.
anything else in regard to the financial update?
Yes.
Let's move on to item 9.
actually, David,
Yes.
included in the financial update is the state auditor's report.
Oh,
Our audit covering 2019, 2020, and 2021.
Okay.
So I'd like to introduce Scott Hilton and Dina Garza. I've been to many of Dina's concerts through WIPA. I have all her albums. She's amazing. And we have been working with Scott during this audit period, who was incredibly helpful, even providing feedback on our federal procurement document. They'd like to do their exit presentation for the Port of Coupeville.
Yeah,
So
please forgive me for,
no worries. So I do share, Scott, I can either bring up your document or you can go ahead and screen share. There you go.
Perfect. So as that's showing, just want to thank you again for the opportunity to present today again. This is our exit conference. So it is our meeting at the end of the audit to summarize what we did in the audit and make sure that we are being clear and transparent, especially if there are any questions from the board. As Chris mentioned, my name is Dina Garza. And in addition to being the local audit manager based out of Bellingham, I'm also our office's port program manager. So working with WPPA, saw some of you at the conference in Leavenworth last October, so it's great to see you again. So in that role, I just have the opportunity to work more closely to understand port operations and make sure that we're collaborating with our office, both in our internal training, but also issues that come up, right, when you need SAO support. So great to get to be part of this audit today. With me, as Chris mentioned, is Scott Hilton, who is an audit supervisor on our team and performed the lead duties with this audit. So he will be talking in just a minute in more detail about the audit that we performed and the reports that will be published as part of it. Before we get into that, I just wanted to take a minute on the second slide. Again, just to thank for the opportunity. We see high value anytime we can meet with you as part of the audit process, and this meeting where we can discuss the results we see as a really big part of that. In part because it aligns with 3 of our main goals as an office. We have a vision at the office of an increased trust in government. We want to support all that you and your staff are doing on a day-to-day, and sometimes we have a unique position to be able to speak to the public and really support that as an independent third party. It's also really important to us while we stay independent to stay very transparent, like I said, to answer any questions about, how we determine what to audit or what the recommendations mean. We want to make sure that, nothing is a secret in our operations. And the third is a goal of efficiency and effectiveness in government. So again, supporting, like I said, what you all are doing. So where we can perform a personalized audit, where we can have recommendations that reference what you're working on or what you have in front of you, or if we can share some of our non-audit services. We have really put effort over the last few years of proactive side of this, of what guidance we can provide, what information we can share that would be helpful, ahead of a recommendation that might come out of an audit. So really excited to just kind of intro that as far as our great relationship that we've had with the port over the years. And I think at this time it would just be perfect to go ahead and hand it over to Scott to talk about the audit that he performed.
Thank you, Dina, and thank you, Chris and Dawn, especially throughout the audit process. I appreciate all your help and also bearing with me on sort of an extended audit process. I really appreciated. Many of you may not know I'm on leave currently and have been since August, and so I've been working on this and one other project in the meantime, so I could take a little bit longer of a parental leave. And I'm coming back to work next week, but this is kind of warming me up to get back to work. But I do appreciate that, and it's been helpful, and I think it actually helped the audit process a little bit this time around, just based on everybody's schedules. But what I'd like to talk about, and referring to that packet that we did send you at the beginning of the packet, there is sort of an expanded version of what we're talking about today, and then there's an audit report. And then finally is a management representation letter, and it just covers things that you as a port sort of certify and assert to us throughout the audit process. And to cover the audit report, you'll notice at the top there that this is a 3-year audit. The port is a smaller entity, and so 3 years for an accountability audit is the longest period we offer. And so we do January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2021. Now we're in 2023, so most of the audit was conducted last year, within a year of the end of that period. And in the report, this is just a summary of kind of what we see as some of the important information, is that in the areas that we looked at in that box, there is that the port complied in all material respects with all applicable state laws and regulations, your own policies, and provided adequate controls over safeguarding of public resources, basically saying that in what we looked at, we didn't find any really significant issues that the public needs to be aware of. We did have a chance to offer a lot of what we think and are helpful recommendations throughout the process, and I appreciate the willingness of management and the commissioners to address some of those things so quickly and in the interim between audits as well. And when we do our audits, we used what we call a risk-based approach for identifying the areas that we're going to look at. We can't look at everything the port does. It would take too much time, and so what we do is we sort of evaluate the ports across the state and public entities across the state and some of the issues and areas of concern that may come up. And a lot of times we focus on those, but we also look very closely at what's happened for your specific port over the past several years. So if you don't do something or didn't do something, we're not typically going to look at that as an area of audit. So the areas that we did select, you'll see there, I'll go to the last two first, because those are areas we look at typically every audit. We review your minutes of these meetings throughout the audit period and up to kind of current dates. And we also look for compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and offer any recommendations for either documentation issues or the communication that commissioners have in those meetings. And then also financial condition is an area of public interest, where the financial condition of public entities, governments, ports, cities is of concern to the public. And so we typically take a look at that every audit. Now, the more specific ones that we selected for the Port of Coupeville is procurement. And we did a couple of different things. We looked at a procurement through during the period of the fire suppression system, but we also, our main area that we wanted to look at was the policies. And Chris alluded to that there were some updates to the policies based on some stuff we looked at. And also because of that broadband grant and potential for future federal audit that we would perform. It sounds like a very high likelihood that for the fiscal year 2023, we'll need to perform one of those audits. And so we made recommendations for expanding those policies to fit the federal guidelines. And that kind of leads me into the second area too, is the annual report filing. And what with those federal audits, oftentimes there comes a financial statement audit as well. It doesn't always happen based on what happens during the year, and we don't know until after the year concludes what we would look at in a financial audit. But we did want to take a look at the financial reports that are filed with the state auditor's office to see if there are any areas that could be improved to help compliance with the reporting guidelines. And so we found some really good recommendations, and to my understanding, have already been addressed or will be addressed at this year's submission and everything. So that we found that to be really productive to look at those areas. Are there any questions about the areas or the audit scope? That's me buying time to get a drink of water. Without I don't see any questions. I can't see everybody very well, but I don't think there's any questions. I'll move on. This next slide just notifies you that the report will be published on our website. I believe we have a newer commissioner, and I don't know if you've been involved with our audits before, and maybe some of the commissioners have been around a while. May already have subscriptions to the audit reports on our website, but you can see there we post, you can go to our website and find out how to get different audit reports. A lot of ports might like to sign up to get every audit report for a port around the state, or just those that are that have findings in them or something like that. And so you can kind of have an idea of what the the different ports in your area are doing in their audits, or what types of areas have been looked at. And then with this release of the audit report, there will be a survey, and that survey will be sent to Chris, and he can send it on to anybody else who would like to have an opportunity to give us feedback. We take that feedback very seriously. It gets reviewed not only by me and Dina, but all the way up to our directors and often Pat McCarthy, the state auditor, is even reviewing a lot of the surveys as well. So if it's constructive feedback, if you'd like to say thanks, whatever it is, we'd appreciate the feedback. And finally, as far as the audit goes, I'd like to communicate what I talked a little bit about earlier. Is we first, the audit is going to come in line with our estimates from at the beginning of the audit, probably even a little bit under what we originally estimated. And then we have included an estimate for the next audit. And it's a little bit of a moving target because we don't know exactly what we'll be looking at next audit, but we believe we'll be looking at the federal program and also reviewing the financial statements. And so that would likely happen next year if the port exceeds $750,000 of federal expenditures during this year, during 2023. Finally, and I'll stop if there were any questions about any of the last couple of slides, if anybody has any.
So when the federal audit gets involved, does that then become an annual audit?
So the federal audit, good question, is we are required, or you as the port are required to get a federal audit within 9 months after your fiscal year end, any year that the port would exceed $750,000 of federal expenditures. So if the port goes over $750,000 in 2023, you would get an audit before the end of September 30th of the next year. In 2024, if you also go over 750,000 in 24, you would get another audit the next year. So it'd be an annual audit as long as you exceed $750,000 in a fiscal year.
So it's triggered by that number.
Correct.
And is it the Washington State Auditor that does that federal audit? You guys do that?
We do those, and that is why we included the estimate in the exit packet that I emailed over. Is we do those. Other people do those audits as well, but that's something we do year round. So right now we're doing federal audits for schools, and we do federal audits all year. Their reporting deadline is earlier in the year, so we do those kind of this time of year. And then other entities that have December 31st fiscal year ends, we do usually a little bit later.
And typically do the same people audit the organization from year to year, or is it passed on to another entity?
We do attempt to keep our staffing consistent from year to year so
that you have a history with the port.
Yeah. And I have been loosely in, so for instance, I've been loosely involved in past years with several questions that have come through, as I was the what we call a subject matter expert for ports. I used to be, now I'm cities, so I saw Blaine on here, so they get to submit questions to me for cities. And Dina is the program manager, and so she reviews a lot of those questions and things that come through our help desk, and are really closely involved with ports around the state. I have never done the audit before, but Dina has overseen the last few. I know there was a period of time where our Everett office did the Coupeville, the Port of Coupeville audits, but I think that was only temporary because of workflow and everything. But typically it'll be the Bellingham office that would do it.
Yeah, I utilized Scott quite a bit before we approved the IDD. So he's been very helpful throughout the last couple of years.
And we do really appreciate those questions throughout the audit period. I mean, when we're not even doing an audit, we have a help desk that questions can come in. You all can email us as well, because a lot of times it's hard to wait 3 years until an audit to ask those questions, and so we welcome those. Any other questions? I did really want to thank, I did a little bit earlier, but I wanted to thank Chris and Dawn. And also just something I noticed as I was coming into this audit is that Chris and management have been proactive with areas of accountability, not necessarily related to our audits in the past, but areas that we do look at, like fraud prevention and employee policies and the communication with commissioners. And we saw that a lot of that was exceptional during the time since our last audit. And also, yeah, the addressing of the recommendations that we had during the audit. Not every time we do an audit does management address those recommendations right away. And so we do appreciate Dawn and Chris diving in to address those recommendations, and it just shows, it speaks to the level of dedication that they have to accountability.
Thank you.
So that is the end of our presentation. I'll open up to if there are any questions beyond what we've talked about already, or if it's something we talked about.
Well, you answered my main question already, that in regards to at what point do we end up having the annual audit. So that was my biggest question, is what prompts that at what point? And
yeah, and I'll expand on that a little bit too, is that in that slide, I didn't refer to the next accountability audit. There we have 3 different types of audits. You saw the federal and financial statement on that slide, but this is the accountability audit. So those are 3 types of audits that we perform. The 3-year accountability audit cycle would likely be for years 2022, 23, and 24, and that would happen in 2025.
Okay, so we still have the accountability audit, even
Right.
though we'll have
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice to know too.
If we have a federal or financial audit, we usually group those together with the accountability audit.
Mhm.
So the next year would be more in depth and more cover more areas. And so I wouldn't say take longer amount of time, because this time we did take a few months because I was just working a few hours a week, but
Yeah. Well, it
but
kind of basically helps with planning for budgeting for these things
Okay,
too.
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Basically.
And we do always try to communicate ahead of time the expected amount of time and cost of the audits.
Okay, thank you.
And Scott, I promise, when we start the construction phase of this broadband project, when we start hitting those thresholds, 650, 675, I'm going to contact you and let you know where we are, so we can trigger that audit early in the process and have that full time to learn. This will be our first federally executed grant, as well as federally executed project. So I want to say
Okay.
thank you for all your support, not only helping us with our federal procurement policy, but just being open and having your phone line open for us to ask questions, because this is a huge learning curve for us going into this project.
Yeah, for big federal projects and for the federal audits for a small port like yourselves, there's a lot to do and a lot to consider. And I would say it's almost nearly impossible to consider all of it and do all of it. But I have noticed that you have been dedicated to investigating that and looking into trying to have great compliance. So there's more to it than compliance, and we understand that you have a port to run, and we just do our part when it comes to the audit.
Yeah, well, thank you for recognizing that, first of all.
Yeah, you don't have a federal audit department, I don't think, right?
We don't even have a federal procurement person.
Right.
Mary, who we brought on with 2.5 months ago, that's been, I wouldn't say locked in a room, but is in a room studying countless pamphlets, attending webinars, trying to understand what we're about to get into. So we appreciate your support and your educative approach to things. I embrace audits because that's a way for us to learn and to stay transparent. So I'm very, very happy working with you guys. I learned a
Well,
lot.
thank you. And our contact information is in the packet we sent over if you need that. And we're just being respectful of all of your time. We will end our presentation and step out of your meeting. And if you need anything, please let us know. Those reports should be published soon, and you should see those on our website.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all for everything you do.
Thank
Can
you
I
all.
Thank you.
I would just like to reiterate that and thank you for attending the meeting and working closely with our staff to make the port a better thing. So
You're
Scott,
welcome.
Scott,
Yes.
congratulations on the parrot thing.
Thank you. Thank you. It's having two is exponentially tougher than one, I've learned. But
Try 3.
Don and Chris have offered their support through the process, and I appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
Dana.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Now it's time to move to item 9, the executive director's report.
You bet. So I'm going to be covering wharf update, broadband update. If you guys have any questions outside of those two topics, I'm more than happy to answer them for you.
I'm trying to get to it, Chris. Hang on just a second.
No worries.
Do any of the other commissioners have questions about Chris's report?
Not for me.
And congratulations for dealing with sam.gov.
Yes, that was a handoff to Mary to bring that across the finish line. That was a big deal. That's a big checkbox, and it's purely administrative, and you have no control. So thank you.
What does UEI stand for?
Well, I have some ideas, but unique equity identifier, I believe it is, or something.
Okay.
Unique, I forget what the E stands for. Entity, unique entity identifier, as the voice from above is yelling at me. So that opens up all our grants for EPA and for other federal grants, which I'll talk about here in a bit.
Could you expand a little bit about any damage that was done to the wharf in Front Street, 24 Front Street during the high tide?
Yeah, very little damage. I will tell you that the day after, our facilities maintenance crew was in the basement of 24 Front Street, cleaning it out, squeegeeing it out, building up sandbags. When I walked in there, Bill Seitz and Jeff and Paul were filling sandbags, you know, to get prepared for the next king tide here on the 24th. But very little damage. We didn't lose anything. There was a little bit of a pipe leak underneath the wharf, and that was serviced by our in-house team. So
What kind of a pipe?
what's that?
What kind of pipe?
It was just a water pipe coming up from one of the bathroom sinks. So it was nothing major. They were able to wait for a decent tide to get underneath there and get her fixed. So kind of love being able to do this in-house.
What else did I have a question about?
So, Chris, it sounds like the kayak lease has already been transferred to Kyle.
It's going to be transferred to Kyle. We're a little behind on that just due to the fact that we lost our network for almost 2 weeks and had no access to files. So that will be transferred over on the 1st, and just that portion of the business. So Narissa's working on that lease right now, and we'll probably execute that in the next week. Very simple.
Is Kyle somebody that lives in Coupeville or what?
Yes. Kyle does. He actually works for the cidery here in Green Bank, where they just opened up a tasting room right there next to 24 Front Street. Yeah, he is a Coupeville person.
Well, it's about 3 doors up from 24 Front
Yeah,
Street.
about 3 doors up, yeah.
Commissioner Callahan, any questions?
Done.
Okay. Let us then move back to the agenda to old business, item number 10. And 10.1 regards the wharf update and the roof and pile project.
Yep. Well, first of all, congratulations. It was December 28th, 2019 that we submitted our JARPA to the Corps, and it was December 28th of 2022 when it was finally accepted. So 3 years to the day, but the Port of Coupeville has its pile and cap permit. We are going to be meeting, that being Kelly LaFave, our engineer, and Doug Thompson, our permitting specialist. We'll be meeting on Friday to discuss the next steps, which is finalizing the engineering plans, building the bid packet, going out to bid to start checking all those boxes to go out to a bid. We are looking at options that I think are intelligent, such as pre-purchasing the materials now. So we are not waiting to get materials when we finally get a date for work to be done. There is a little bit of hesitation about still supply line, and Kelly is going to be spearheading that part of it. He has already been tasked with going to maybe a few different construction companies and looking at material availability that would relate to our project and trying to project where that's going to be a challenge or not. I think it would be a smart move to be able to pre-purchase materials if we could. We're looking at probably starting the bid process next month, finalize the engineering plans, and starting the bid process probably next month, maybe March. We are not going to be able to do anything before that fish window opens up. That would allow us to get through the bid process, get a construction company lined up, get all our boxes checked, and look for a probably October start date to that project. Project timeline itself is probably 4 to 6 weeks at the very outside, which would put us after the high season there at the wharf. So the timing on that is going to be good. The other part of this, moving away from pile and caps, is the roof. We are looking to get finalized plans from Swenson Safe Faget towards the end of this month because they were booked out. We are still on track for a March completion date for the construction, repair, and replacement of the wharf roof. So we're still on schedule for that. In the meantime, we are also in the process, as far as the architectural side of it, for the wall stabilization project. That project will involve certain walls within the entire wharf building. The entire interior of those walls will be removed and sheared with 4x8 sheets of plywood, and then the interior is reapplied. So we're looking to get that done, in probably March, April. We need to be, obviously want to be sensitive towards the businesses out there. But at this point, I have no other details on how long that project will take. But during those projects, those businesses will have to be closed. And that's all I know on that so far. But those are the 3 main wharf projects that are in process right now. We're also looking at, with the EPA grant, the full replacement of our pump out as well as the reimbursement of the sewer line that was replaced earlier in the year, as well as once the pile and cap projects are done, the replacement of the 2 boxes at the north and south end of the causeway that hold the valves and where the pipes enter and exit the causeway. So there you go. Quick wharf update. A lot of good stuff going on.
So was there any discussion with Kelly about the king tide that we had?
No, not yet. We're still trying to get a hold of Nichols Brothers and some other companies to give us ideas about the wharf building, whether it can be raised. We're still in process, and Mary's doing some calling and just trying to get a hold of people for that. I will bring it up to Kelly on Friday. He has been absolutely buried in another project. And so I actually emailed him last week about that, and he actually got back to me last night. So he's finally getting freed up from that project. And I will definitely ask him the question that you asked, which is, in the future, can the piles that we'll be replacing be extended? And then we'll continue to find out what we can do as far as raising the roof. I mean, raising the wharf building itself. So we'll get you some answers.
Good.
So the other question I have in this regard is whether or not Kelly has developed any kind of idea about the current projected costs of this project compared to 3 years ago when we were looking at about $1.1 million. Does Kelly have, or anyone else have, any idea about the potential for those costs being substantially greater?
Yeah, we'll take a look at that once he starts looking at material costs, right? That's the big thing, is the material costs, because that has absolutely increased over the last 3 years, especially the last 2. So yes, David, the short answer is yes. We will try to come up with a revised estimate for internal purposes. So,
I mean, obviously a bid is going to give us that answer, but it'd be nice to have it.
yeah, and you look at
ahead of that.
You look at what was slotted for permitting fees, and we were doing okay until the $30+ $1,000
Right.
per
Careful.
So, we know we're going to be over budget, just about how much. But yes.
Any other questions about 10.1, guys?
The town of Coupeville is having that sea level rise meeting in the near future. And Chris, it would be really nice, because I'm set up to attend that meeting as just somebody in the community, in case we get asked about the wharf building, being able to deal with sea level rise. It'd be really nice to have a little bit of insight about how long the steel pilings are going to be above water, and just kind of a general sense of the practicality or reality of rising, bringing up the building from a sea level rise. So there is a time element to this, getting a response.
John, I can't remember when that meeting is. It's the end of the month?
21st or something.
Let me use my calendar.
I thought it was going to be in February, because I am going to be in Vegas during that day. I thought February 9th or 10th.
Yeah,
No,
the 9th.
By the mayor, what is it?
Yeah, I think it's February 9th.
Yep, at 6 p.m.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to 10.2, the broadband phase 2 update.
Yep, I'll make this very quick. Basically, we are where we were when Kara came in and gave the last update. Here's some our next steps here. Really, the IRU with the Port of Bellingham is being finalized. It has already gone through the vice president in Astound. of operations, and now it just has to go through their finance, and then it is a done deal. That's significant for us because once that's approved, then our IOU with Astound would be modified for our project, and probably approved as well. So that's a lot of progress right there. You guys can read this at a later point, but I just want to show you. The other thing I really want to share with you is that there has been some money that has come out recently that we have to jump on. And after consulting with Kara from Petrichor, this is an application that we think we can put together pretty quick. And it is a non-matching. And we think that we can bring in an additional $1.3 to $1.6 million towards this project to account for any overruns. One of the reasons why we looked at this was because it was assumed going in, because we were told that Astound would perform all engineering and design costs for free at no cost, and that wasn't the case. So now you've got a plan for another $300,000 to $350,000 cost possibly, and so that triggered looking for more money. And this is a grant that can be processed pretty quickly. It is another federal grant, but we're already in that business. So I just want to let you know that we'll be putting this grant together pretty quickly, and I'll be going out to the board for approval to submit that. So I just really want to give you a heads up. Things happen fast. And that's all I have for the broadband phase 2.
John, do you want to add anything or ask anything in this regard?
I've been having Chris forward, information that showed up. And I think one of the WPPA newsletters about the Port of Columbia, which is a really small port with very limited staff. But it showed a photograph of them getting their inventory of fiber optic cable for their project. Have you guys opened up those forwarded email links or whatever?
I have.
I have.
I mean, that's, Chris, are they going down a similar route that we're going down?
I don't have enough detail on their project, but one of the things that they're doing that we are looking at doing as an option is pre-purchasing all the materials. In other words, the port going out and pre-purchasing all the materials and storing.
Right.
So, right, and taking advantage of piggybacking on the state co-op with Graybar to go out and get discounted rates on materials. So it's an option we'll be looking at.
Okay.
And would we store those at the farm?
We haven't worked that logistic out yet, but that's what popped into my head first. Or maybe there is some space over at Whitby Telecom in their yard, where they have a fenced in yard where they store their fiber optic spool. So I'm looking at different options currently.
Okay. Anything else on broadband? Moving to 10.3.
Okay, I'll make this quick. Big thank you to Commissioner Callahan, who reviewed our federal procurement policy word for word. He had some outstanding feedback. We have implemented that feedback, and Mary's in the final phase of just researching a few acronyms that we're not quite sure on. We kind of reverted back from a modified procurement policy to one that really echoes the Port of Everett, that also incorporates Scott Hilton's, the state auditor's feedback. We've gone through it pretty much word for word, Mary and I, and now there's just a few areas that we're just not quite sure. So she's reaching out to the procurement officer at Port of Everett to satisfy those statements, and then we'll be able to present a final federal procurement policy to you. But John put a lot of time into that document and taught us a few things when we met yesterday. So very thankful.
Great.
I assume I'm going to get another crack at your finished project.
You'll be the third to know after Mary and I. Yes.
All right.
There are a couple of other issues that we need to talk about as commissioners. The Port of Everett procurement policy is a great document. And there are some improvements and some areas that we may want to take a look at before we approve the final policy for us. So some of it is just cleaning up some words that I don't know that they are even aware of. Things like if you go to the back of the document, you see a table of things that you're supposed to do in any given procurement. And one of the items talks about making sure that you have small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and veterans-owned businesses. And yet in the front of the document, it omits the veterans preferences. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and that, you know, there might be a couple of those things. The other thing is the cost reimbursement contacts. Again, this is just an example. The Port of Everett document talks about having to receive prior approval from procurement. So if you have an area in an organization that deals with procurement and that you have a head of it, generally speaking, these kinds of cost reimbursement contracts will be approved by that person. And by way of background, cost reimbursement is the least preferable way to contract. In fact, in the federal government, it's severely discouraged, and for obvious reasons. The contractor gets essentially paid on the basis of what they spend plus a percentage. And so there's no incentive for them to keep costs, you know, down or anything. At any rate, one of the things that we might want to consider is instead of the procurement office, which we don't have, is to have cost reimbursement contracts be approved by the commissioners before we go ahead and let a cost reimbursement contract. There are a couple of things like that we might want to take a look at. That's a little bit above and beyond what's on the Port of Everett document. And I wanted to thank Chris and oh, come on. Mary for all the work they've been put in. This is a very complex document, but it's going to serve us very well.
Yeah, amen.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Callahan, for coordinating that.
My pleasure.
Anything else in that regard?
Oh, sir.
That takes us to item 11, which is new business. 11.1 is the introduction of a priority establishment procedure. And this is for Commissioner Callahan as well.
Certainly. I assume you guys all got copies of the documents we sent out rather regarding this. First one was a Port of Coupeville prioritization process Word document, which is in draft form. And basically what it says is that there's a lot of advantages to making sure that we have a prioritized list so it can focus our efforts on the things that we think are most important. The second thing that I think you need to notice about that prioritization process is that the fact that something receives a low prioritization at the end of the exercise doesn't mean that it's going to be thrown out. It just means that the other items that were given a higher priority rather would probably be accomplished first, given, of course, the constraints of staff time and budget. So the way the process works is first you create a list of prospective projects, and then the three commissioners rate them in terms of importance and urgency. And we have some, not guidelines, but things to think about as each commissioner looks at the particular project. Once the commissioners have rated the projects, then the sum is totaled up automatically on the spreadsheet. And those that have the highest score essentially are the top priority items. Obviously, if this thing is to work, people have to rate these things as the what they feel is the best in terms of the good of the port. Once we have got those things rated and the priority list has been set, then I think administratively, with the input of the executive director, you can go through the list and apply the do, delegate, defer, or delete construct to those elements. So if we have a second, oh, and yeah, can we show the spreadsheet?
You bet. I'm getting to that right now.
All right, so the first thing to do is construct the list. And I've taken a crack at that. And basically, I used existing documents that the port has. And then I also used the input, but from Commissioner Mashansik. I may change a little bit of the words or the wording or something to make it appear more like a project. And that you'll find out at the bottom, essentially, of the sheet. I also added in stuff for the potential to purchase and manage an airport. So, we can go over this list, or people can add to the list as to they think is appropriate. I asked Chris to add whatever he thought might be appropriate. And once we have gone through that project process and come up with a kind of a finalized list, if you will note at the top of the page here, each commissioner will rate according to importance and urgency, and they will be automatically totaled in the far right column rather, and that will give us an idea of where to start. And when I say where to start, I mean this is not in concrete. So there may be something that comes up, and the commissioners want to get together and say, well, when we did our exercise, it came out this way, but something else has happened, and therefore it needs to move up in the listing. So that's always an option, but at least this will give you a beginning as to where we should be spending our time. Now, as far as the commissioner's input is concerned, each commissioner would have to do their own input, free of any influence from other commissioners. So it would not the kind of a thing where right now we have something that gets forwarded around to the commissioners and asking them to add stuff. It would be the commissioner from District 1 does his rating, sends it into Chris. Commissioner 2 send it to Chris, and I send mine to Chris, and he can, as the kind of neutral party, total these things up in the appropriate columns. So that's pretty much it. I assume that you guys had an opportunity to look at this. And if you'll notice, after each of the projects, I put a little letter in parentheses. So A is for like airport, and GB is Greenbank Farm, W is wharf. The only reason those things are there is because as we reorder these things, it would just be more clear what these projects are related to in terms of the priority. So if you had 10 people or 10 items in the priority list that all have a score of 20, it would be nice to know that, well, this one's in the wharf, this one's Greenbank, this is airport, etc. So it's just there a way to kind of keep track of where these things are. All right, so there you go. Any questions?
So I've looked this over and I had two thoughts, John. One was, I was wondering if the executive director should not also do this, even though he's the motor behind getting things done. Maybe his thoughts on this should be included as well in terms of ratings. And
Yeah,
the other
the only-
thought,
The only reason, if you don't mind me answering that question as it came up, the only reason I don't have it in there is that one of the bases for this is that this priority list is actually providing direction to the executive director as to what they should be focused on. That was the only reason that he's not on there right now. Wouldn't be improper at all for him to rate these things and get his input. So
so that was one of my thoughts, and I appreciate your reasoning there. The other thought is whether or not a project could be done in-house and somehow that much that information could be incorporated in this somehow.
well, that would be, again, at the end of the process, after we've done the initial run, then the executive director actually would apply the 4 Ds, if you will: do, delegate, defer, or delete. And the do would be doing it with in-house staff.
Well, I guess what my thought process was in terms of rating them, I might rate something higher because I knew it could get done faster by doing it in-house than having to go through a major process of either finding somebody to do it through a bidding process or another venue. So
I would suggest that you can use that rationale if you would like to do that when you pick as to whether or not something is important. If you go back to the document, the Word document, I have one of the things that I'm asked commissioners to think about is what I call degree of difficulty. And I think that what you're speaking of would actually fit into that.
yeah, I get what you're saying. I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not sure what capabilities our staff might have in regard to the projects or issues that are listed. And again, maybe like you've coded everything, maybe there could be a code for the capability of this is within our own house.
Yeah, if I may, if I think that's a very valid question. What I'd like to see, and I agree with Commissioner Callahan, is when this thing gets finalized, that I can go through it and highlight the areas that could possibly be done in-house. You know, for example, the grass parking lot lights, we're getting a bid as we speak right now to have them removed from a vendor. But I've also met with our facilities team, and they feel that with the right equipment rented, we can take them down ourselves. So those are projects that I like to sit down once this is said and done, and sit down with my team and then provide additional feedback to the board.
So piggybacking on to Chris's just statement, as you rate these things, I think it would take an incredible effort to identify each of the projects as being due in-house or not right now. But the fact that what I call it low-hanging fruit, and that is if you are rating something and you think it could be done in-house, and I think you guys probably have a pretty good idea from your experience with the wharf and Green Bank Farm, et cetera, what you think can be done in-house, you can take that into consideration. Again, I say that's low-hanging fruit, meaning this is something that you would assign a higher priority to because you think it can be done in-house, or because you want to, for example, just show the public that we've made some accomplishments. That's what the phrase in there, pick the low-hanging fruit, was meant to convey.
Okay,
So if you, if you like this approach, I would suggest that we ask the commissioners to see if they have any other projects they want to add, and then get to the rating. And what we would probably need to decide now is whether or not we want to have Chris rate along with the commissioners.
Can I raise an issue?
sure.
I'm not even sure totally. I understand how we're defining issues / projects. And the reason I say that is we have like under Greenbank Farm type issue projects is a job description. And for a farm property manager and hire a farm property manager. So that's a staffing issue and not what I think of a typical project where we build infrastructure, where we do CM&R, construct, maintain, or repair. And yet that's an important topic, I think, is to make Chris a little bit more durable for the long haul, is to take something off his plate and put it on the responsibility of a farm manager. But that means, budgeting and hiring. So, it's an issue, but it's not really a project per se, is it?
John, let me answer that by saying that I've gone through this thing and I thought I was pretty careful, rather. And I probably was not in my discussion right now. It's not just projects, it's projects and issues. So it's project / issue. So here's why that I think we ought to stick with that. It may be, for example, the issue, let's look at workforce housing, okay? One of the, I don't know if it's in there or not, but one of the issues might be, let's go back to look at one of these things. Consider other programs, including acquiring property for workforce housing. All right. So let's say we rate that. And, I take it from your prior correspondence that you're very much in favor of some kind of program that's going to be able to develop workforce housing and contribute to the economic base that we're trying to solidify. And that's great, but let's rate that. And, you would rate that pretty high, I would assume. I don't know, David, is how he was going to rate it. And I know how I would rate it, and it may come out that that's on the bottom, not on the bottom, but it doesn't have a very high priority right now from the urgency standpoint, in which case the question is, do we want to do anything with that or just defer it to a different time? Otherwise, we're going to be spending, or we could be spending, a lot of time talking about things that we really don't want to do at this time anyway.
I think when I went through new commissioner training way back in 2015 in Seattle, the tool that they had shown that group of new commissioners was like an XY axis grid. I'm not sure this, is actually going to show up a little bit, but it had, basically you ended up with 4 areas of a kind of a decision-making tool where the bottom axis would be low to high community benefit. The other axis was low to high return on investment, which is kind of a financial parameter of a project. And it was kind of saying that, you really wanted to be in that upper right quadrant where it was high return on investment, so money to be reinvested in future projects, and high community benefit. Whereas the lower left quadrant would be, no return on investment, or, negative return on investment, and negative or no community benefit. Why do something? And then the other 2 quadrants were kind of like maybes, like, decent return on investment, but low community benefit, high community benefit, but, again, limited return on investment. That would be the tool on each one of those line items, that I would look at airport acquisition and assess it from that standpoint. So it simplifies, because this starts to look pretty complicated. And so I'm looking at a way to simplify this whole process, to just go bing, high priority, low priority, forget it. Don't even try or think about it. So just be aware that I'm thinking in terms of just those 2 parameters, community benefit and return on investment, because return on investment, it would actually give us money to put into the wharf. It would give us funds for, future infrastructure projects, things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so John, the things that you just mentioned, you can apply to this list that we've created, either as urgent or important. And actually, I actually thought about doing that for the diagram that has the 4 quadrants. I'm very familiar with that. This information that we collect right now could actually be put in that kind of a diagram very easily, by just having your x-axis being important and the y-axis being urgent, and picking the values you need to put low in one quadrant, high in the other, and the others in between. It just, the reason I chose the numbering thing was it allows you to see groups. The kind of thing that the 4 quadrant thing ends up with a bunch of dots in an area. Same difference, but I think this is visually a little bit more impactful. Sorry.
Well, I think Commissioner Callahan, this exercise ranks it where John places individual priority and grades it. So I think if the 2 could be combined, it would be pretty powerful.
And Commissioner Callahan just spoke in terms of urgency as a axis, whereas my axis was return on investment, because we've had so much negative return on investment on all our assets. I'm looking at it, how can we move forward on having assets or infrastructure that contributes a positive return on investment, that then allows funding of negative return on investment asset repairs and maintenance. That's where I was headed.
That criteria is in the importance category right now. It says whether or not you need money coming in.
Okay.
you know, when you say return on investment, that's a really interesting concept. To me, it means that you've invested some money and you're getting a return on it. That's a financial kind of investment kind of thing. But again, I'm new to the port. I don't think we're in the business rather of raising money. I think what we're doing is trying to offset expenses through projects that we can get money into our coffers to compensate for the things that we want to do. So, for example, that provision that that presentation we had during the last meeting about a solar farm where the person was talking about $30,000 in rent rather. That's that's money coming in. That's great. But yeah,
Can I respond to what you just said?
sure.
So there are ports, not a lot of them, but there's some ports that their keystone decision maker is, can they do projects that will bring in a net return on investment to the point that they can eliminate their property tax levy? Now, is that not a eye opener?
Yeah. So again, if you think that's the case, then you as a commissioner should rate that in the importance as very high.
Yeah. And I think that's what does drive me to think about other ports that have said, instead of thinking about property tax levies, they're thinking about property levy tax reductions, to the point of at some point in the future, they eliminate their property tax levy totally, because they have enough positive income off of their infrastructure that they don't need property taxes. I'm not saying that's easy. It's in our cards for our lifetime. Maybe it's in the cards for some future port commissioners to be, taking action on that concept. But that is not something that the taxpayers normally hear. They don't normally hear that somebody's working, a group of elected officials are working towards reducing taxes.
John, I think you hit it right on the head there when you said that it may be that some of these things are going to be for future commissioners. The whole object of this exercise is to figure out what we can do right now with the money we have and the staff that we have.
And my response to that is that having attended a conference in Cle Elum back, I think in 2016, that was all about ports and how to raise money and different avenues to get money. It really showed me that a big part of a port is almost acting like a financial institution. Where you get your money, where do you find partners to cover, matching funds. I mean, it's just, you're as much a bank as you are a port trying to build stuff, that you're really working on, the money, the flow of money and future flows of money and partnering for money. And that is money, money, money. And then the flip side of that is, what do you do with that money? You build stuff, but you want to build stuff that has a positive return on investment.
Well, I'd like to interrupt this because I think we're getting a little further down the road than we need to. Chris, can you take whoever's sharing this, can we take it down? Thank you. I'd like to suggest that we first of all include Chris in the rating system. That's my suggestion. And that we go ahead and do this exercise as an exercise and see what comes of it.
Okay.
So each one of us is going to bring a different perspective because we're different people. Chris is going to have probably the most overall I would like Chris to participate just so that we have something to compare to with somebody who's doing this work every day, wherein we are not, who is more aware of the capabilities of the staff, more aware of what the port currently might be able to do. And so I think it's a valid exercise, and I think it's laid out relatively simply if we direct our attention to it in a meaningful way.
I agree.
I agree as well. We'll put, well, you know, I will change the sheet to include input from Chris.
So I would suggest that maybe we get that finalized in terms of a document and then forward it to the commissioners and this just for drill, do the work and see what happens.
So my understanding is it's the file that we have, each one of us can modify that file. And we can put our input into it.
No, the only thing you have to do is score the projects.
That's what I mean. We can actually use that file and go in there and
Is it
score
a-
our thing.
Oh, yeah,
Is it a
Absolutely.
writable file?
Yeah.
It's a writable file?
We will make it a writable file.
Okay,
Yeah, so the whole idea was to get input from you two to make sure you have, it really isn't a project list, it's a priority list.
great.
And this is
Right.
why I did not want to be a part of it, to be quite honest with you. This is a priority list set by the board. Or
Yeah.
working for the board. So having me come in and set my priorities, that's not my role. My role is to say, board, what would you like me to do? Okay, I will go out and execute it. And so I think your reasoning, David, is spot on, but I think for this exercise, I don't think the executive director should.
Okay.
It should be the board setting priorities. And then I would definitely obviously come in and give you my input and tell you how I'm going to execute when I get that directive from the board. So thank you for letting me express my opinion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think, Chris, if you do it, it would be something separate from us and not your scores added into the overall scores.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what I was looking at. That's true. I wasn't suggesting that you be part of the scoring process. I should have made that clearer. But it would be interesting from an exercise perspective to me to compare our scores with your score, but not after the fact, but have your scores available so that when our scores were determined, we could compare them directly without your thought process involved affecting us, either our thought process affecting you.
Yeah, I'll know because I'm the one that's coagulating the data. So for me,
Okay.
I operate as well as my staff in triage almost daily. So we are triaging literally almost daily. And I will tell you that it's at least weekly. So for me, like you said, David, well said, I'm on the battleground and I am with my team. We are working these projects and we are stop, move over here, stop, move this way, stop, move back. And it's just like
Okay.
this constant.
Okay.
So for me to be able to have this as a high level going, oh, I didn't realize that workforce housing was at the top of the board's list. Well, we better start thinking about how we're going to execute against that, while we're doing everything else. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, good work.
So are we in agreement, gentlemen, then that the document will be modified and then offered to us to score?
I
Yes.
think, yeah.
And do we want to put
Yeah.
a timeline on it?
Yeah.
And have it ready for the first February meeting?
Okay.
So that we can have so that it can be scored and reported on by that meeting?
Sure. And
Yep.
I just want to be clear, the three commissioners are going to do the rating and get a final score as for priority, and then Chris is going to do his own rating, and he'll match that up with what we did as the, as priorities. And if there's something that, for example, we have highest priority and he knows it shouldn't be there, that he can give us some feedback on that.
Well, what I'd like to do is,
I think Chris wanted to bow out of that process.
yeah, it doesn't make sense for me to rank. My job's to execute. But I would like to comment on your rankings and at least
Right.
provide you, like David said, I'm the one that's in charge of executing. So I would love to be able to come back and provide comments on those top rated projects. I have
Perfect.
a feeling besides some of the, because I appreciated where Commissioner Mashasek went, was it's not only the CRNM, it is where do we want to be as a port later? Like David brought up the expansion of the port, where does that fall as a priority? I will come back and say, that's a 2-year thing. This is a 3-year thing. We can get this done within 30 days. This is where I would come in after.
Okay.
Yeah. This is
So,
good.
let's work on the premise that prior, let's say, by the end of the month, we'll have scored that document and forward it to Chris for whatever that word is that puts it all together.
Yep. And I think we have an early meeting in February. I believe it's the 8th, because I leave on the 9th. So
So pick a date that you'd like to have that. By what date would you like to have that scoring to you?
by January 31st, so I could spend a day with it and turn it right back around to you guys. So you guys can now have the final results.
Okay, so
And let me just clarify, they won't be final results. It'll be a working document.
it's a working, it's an exercise.
It's the
Yeah.
tabulated results. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
Tabulated
Well,
results.
I mean, I think that gives us discussion points between the three of us and Chris and Dawn and everybody else. So, but I think it's a great exercise, and I think it's been a long time coming. So,
Yeah.
there's been lots of spaghetti thrown at the walls, and like not a lot of reporting on the spaghetti.
okay, we ready to move forward?
Yeah, let me get back to my agenda here.
Executive session.
Good question. Have the two of you responded to the Dawn's request for us approving the vouchers?
I
No,
have
I
not
did.
yet.
Oh, thank you,
Okay.
John. Yeah.
I have
So
not.
we get-
I have not. I've been involved in the meeting here.
Let's get that done real quick if you guys don't mind. Thank you.
Okay, hang on just a minute.
While they're doing that, good job, Don, today. And congratulations on the audit. Your first audit with the port, you absolutely aced it. So congratulations. You're on mute.
Thank you. I was kind of nervous, but Scott's easy to work with, and I liked his recommendations. So
And plus, whenever he had a question, you or I were on it. We did not wait.
yeah.
So,
He had some great comments, by the way, on the procurement document.
yes, he did.
Mhm.
Yes, he did.
So just to clarify on our executive session, we're going to have Blaine, you're going to be involved with that too, right?
And Mr. McCaslin as well.
It's up to you, but I would certainly like to be part of the discussion.
Yep.
And Steve McCaslin also with the city.
And Don Meehan is having a medical procedure. So even though he had some information, he won't be able to be personally available to share that. But he did kind of, I kind of know where his head's at. So, okay, are we ready for, you guys have done your reply all email?
Did you want me to run the meeting, John, or did you want to take it over?
No, thank you. I was just helping out while you were doing that, I hope.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to confirm the three port commissioners, Mr. Oborn and Mr. McCaslin, are in the executive session, correct? Do you
Yes.
want myself in there, or would you like to?
Yeah.
You can be in there, Chris, and I think 20 minutes is sufficient.
Okay.
20 minutes, okay.
So David,
go
are
ahead
you
and-
going to lead us into it?
I'm gonna start building the rooms right now, okay?
I'd be happy to. I still need to get back to my agenda here. Hang on just a second. Okay.
You
So
ready?
item 12 is an executive session to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of an increased price. No determination, this is an informational session. Nothing will be determined out of this. And the planned time currently is roughly 20 minutes. It's 11:36 right now, so we'll be back in 20 minutes.
Join the meeting.
The board is requesting at 11:55 a.m. for a 10-minute extension to the executive session. Thank you. We're looking to come back to the open public meeting at 12:05 p.m.
Is everybody back? John
Yep.
back?
Yep.
Back, everybody's back. Okay, so I'm going to close the executive session. There was no determinations made during that time. So the next opportunity for public comment is the next thing on the agenda.
Chris, do we have anybody that wants to talk to us?
Loretta, you want to speak? You're
I
unmuted.
do, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, my name is Loretta Beeman, and I am a Coupeville resident, and I'm the owner of 2 businesses out on the Coupeville Wharf. So I just kind of want to address a couple things that I was listening to in the meeting earlier. It seems that there are some pretty significant projects getting ready to get underway in like the next 6 weeks about. And I guess my concern is I still haven't heard a plan for the overall impact to my businesses out here. We talked about the roof being replaced, which is fabulous. I'm very happy that all of this is taking place. But are the businesses going to have to be closed? What are potential things that could arise that could cause delays? The exhaust to the kitchen still hasn't been discussed, and that's a pretty significant, I mean, it sits on the roof. When it comes to the walls being done, what walls are going to be replaced? Is it all of them? When is that supposed to happen? How long is it going to take? Again, what could arise that could cause delays? And the same thing for the piling and caps. So I guess I'm just looking for a better understanding of my reality as a business owner on the wharf for the next 6 to 8 months.
And Loretta, I can address those with you and Long directly outside of the meeting.
Because there's a lot of logistics there, and it really is a huge impact. And
Yeah,
I'm just kind of concerned that I haven't even heard a word about the roof being started other than in this meeting, no details. So I just really want to be on the same page, because it's not easy to start and stop a business like this. And there's also other people that are involved. I have 8 employees. So I really need to be able to make a plan and understand what's going on.
Those are all highly valid questions, Loretta. Thanks for making sure that we understand that you have those concerns.
So I guess Chris will communicate all of this.
Absolutely. I'm surprised you haven't received the emails I've sent already, but I will.
I re-
absolutely.
Okay, I have received the things that are getting ready to start. I just don't have any dates of what's really happening and what the impact to the businesses will be.
Yeah, and neither do we, Loretta. But believe me, those will be communicated in spades once we actually know ourselves. And I'm also very sensitive to timing and the lead time that you, especially you, need for your business. It shouldn't be days, it should be weeks, because you have to plan ahead. So I am very sensitive to.
Well, with projects getting ready to start in 6 weeks, it just seems that there should be a plan.
Well, honestly, I don't think we have bids on anything yet.
No, we don't.
So it's hard for
So-
us to have any idea of scheduling or any of that stuff. So.
Yeah.
So we don't
none
have
of these-
bids and we don't
None
have
of these
material,
projects have gone to bid.
but they're supposed to start in 6 weeks.
No, I don't know where that came from.
Well, it came from saying it was starting in March.
No, I said we have a complete, yes, that's for the roof and the construction replacement, but the engineers and architects have not finished doing their due diligence. So this is why I can't communicate anything. There'd be nothing to communicate. So.
So
I'm
we
hoping
don't know if it's starting in March.
January of what the timeline will be, what the impact will be, and I won't be able to do that until the engineer and the architect understand that as well. So.
So in reality, it could be, it's still a ways out.
Well, possibly, but we're on a delay because of our engineer right now is on delay till the end of January, and then those plans should be put together real quick, and then you got at least a month to go out to bid for construction. And I'm hoping at that point, once we start going out to bid for construction, that I'll be able to have a concrete plan for as far as impact for the businesses out there. So I am literally saying that once I know, within 24 hours, you will know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Like I said, I'm very sensitive to this.
Anyone else have public input for the commissioners?
Nope.
Okay. So that brings us to item number 15, committee reports. And
14,
pardon?
14,
Oh, I'm
14.
sorry. 14, the presiding officer's report. Well, I'm a new presiding officer, so I don't have anything to report. That takes us to 15 and committee reports. And I don't know, John, do you have something about broadband you want to discuss?
Not really. I think our team is pushing it forward as it should be. So we'll just wait to see that the IRUs get fine-tuned, that we can, the commission as a whole can look at the final product for the IRU.
Okay. The other two committees are the COG and the IRTPO. In December, the IRTPO did not meet, so I have nothing to report from that. The COG did, however, meet in a relatively short meeting based on the time of year, I think, more than anything else. The primary topic that came up for the COG meeting was the fact that the county is entering into a trial retainer of an organization called Merchant McIntyre, which is a grant funding exploratory entity. And the idea is that the county is going to hire them on a trial basis for 90 days to see how that works. But their intention, while the county is funding them, is to share that knowledge and expertise with other government entities within the county, one being the Port of Coupeville. So what my understanding of what Merchant McIntyre does is search for grant funding primarily on a federal basis for projects that entities bring them. Pardon me. Hopefully in the future, there will be a liaison between various local government entities and the county to say, like, we want to expand our electric charging situation at the Green Bank Farm, or any one of various and sundry other things, and we can tell that county liaison and have that put on the list for this Merchant McIntyre organization. So the other thing that was brought up, again, very shortly, was a very short discussion about a community economic development strategy. And so it was basically just, we're thinking about that, and we'll talk about it more in the future. So the third thing that was brought up was broadband funding, and the fact that there's another $900 million in broadband funding becoming available through the federal government. And Janet wanted to make sure that the FCC broadband map was brought up to date here in Island County. So she actually did a workshop last week, I think, to help people understand whether or not they actually have internet coverage that's adequate for the state requirements. So I don't have a report on how many people attended that, but that's what I know at this point. So any questions, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Good.
Not for me.
Okay. Item 16 is commissioner discussion. Anyone have anything they'd like to throw at the wall? John.
I think,
John,
which John?
John C.
The John.
Hey.
Hey. I sent an email to Chris and yourselves about a commissioner's workshop being scheduled on January 28th, and I would like to attend. Apparently, our insurance company pays the registration fee, and the only other expenses that would be incurred would be the transportation to this thing in Linwood and hotel. And since my wife is attending also as a commissioner, we would be splitting those costs. So I'd like to do that on the 28th. And secondly, from an educational standpoint, I understand MRSC has a Public Records Act webinar on January 24th, which goes over the trends in litigation over the last year that may affect Public Record Act compliance. And I would also like to attend that. The cost is $40. So I wondering, that's a request to you guys.
So I would like to move that we approve those expenditures for Commissioner Callahan
Second,
with the proviso that we get a full report on his attendance.
Thank you. Oh, so we need a motion or what?
I seconded it.
Okay.
Discussion, I guess, asking for a full report is, to me, is like, I'm happy to have, what the highlights or the takeaway issues, because, you can't, report verbatim everything that's discussed, but as
Yes.
long as we get a couple of good takeaway bites off of
Yes,
a meeting.
I meant to
think-
do this with the word full, John, so.
Okay,
Your quotes.
I have, since we're in the discussion part, this is open to all commissioners. And so if either of you commissioners would like to attend, it's going to be a great program. A lot of, all of the little workout sessions are all directly applicable, as well as the executive directors are invited if they wanted to go. So if I just want to put that out there, if any of you are interested, you can get in touch with me or through Chris rather, and we can make or have those arrangements made.
so we
Okay.
need to vote. We need to vote, right?
Right,
Is there any further discussion?
none.
Well, I would like to again, thank you, Commissioner Callahan, for bringing this up in a timely fashion so that we can approve it prior to your attention to the meeting, and not have to argue about the fact that it, posthumously. So, all in favor of allowing and encouraging Commissioner Callahan to attend these meetings, signify by saying aye.
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 Again, that motion passed unanimously. Any other things you'd like to bring up, Commissioner?
I have one other item. And it's actually I have two, but I can't think of one of them. But the other one is administration. I'm wondering if there's something that we can do to cut down on the number of emails we're getting. As you probably already guessed, I like to read stuff when it comes in. And when I'm getting emails from people regarding pet food classes, or an email trail of the fire suppression system meeting that people were trying to get together, 10 emails on one day, does that work? Does that date work? Yeah, it works for me, blah, blah, blah. I really don't need to be reading that stuff. I would like to concentrate on the important stuff. So I don't know what to do about it, but I'd like to raise the issue, and maybe we could discuss this at some time in the future on how to cut down on this stuff.
I haven't seen all of those. Where are they coming from?
Chris?
Where are they coming from? Those emails? Because I'm not getting them.
Oh, wow.
Well, I did see the one about the fire suppression system, and I think maybe our wharf manager initiated that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I can absolutely cut down on the amount of emails you get, Commissioner Callahan. And honestly, they should be cut down, because it's been a history for this port to keep the board involved in a lot of day-to-day operational stuff, and that's not correct. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be they should be getting high-level reports back on what's going on. So every once in a while, for some reason, a board will be included that really shouldn't. So I can absolutely be more sensitive to the things that are being sent to you guys. Obviously, letting you know the permit has been approved. Absolutely. Letting you know that a brand new compressor through a piston. No, you should not have been included on that. And I should be catching that no matter who starts it. And and stopping it. So yes, I can contribute to a lower email count for you.
What
And
triggered me on this was this email from Genson Gisborne. Starts out, they found us on a Google map and we help local businesses publicize themselves. Are you interested? It's
Well,
like,
you're getting spammed and you're getting junk mail, and that's nothing I can prevent. What you can do is move that to your junk. If it's in your inbox or clutter, move it to your junk box, slide it over to your junk, and then that'll earmark it for the future.
that didn't come to me directly as a commissioner. It came from your office.
What? Whoa, what do you mean came from our office?
Well, I assume that you're somebody here. Yeah. See if I can find it. Look, I can talk to you on the phone, and
Okay.
not keep everybody here, but, yeah.
Let's do that, because we were spearfished once before that was reported to the FBI. So if someone's sending emails to you on behalf of me, that is a problem. So I need to talk with you individually.
Okay.
Thank you.
And John, I try to forward emails that are a high level where some other port, is doing something that we should consider doing, to get us out of the silo,
I think that's what you got.
Right. I just remembered the second thing. John, would you tell me what it is that is involved with this bylaw thing that you want to get me involved in and why?
Oh, yeah. Pacific Rim is the only other special review district property in Whidbey Island. And they have quite an extensive holding of land, actually kind of near where David lives, I think, up in that area, right? Pacific Rim.
Yep.
And one of their board of directors reached out to me a year ago asking for input about how the port handles its bylaws. And I told her, and she went away. Well, then she showed up this past week saying they found some glitches that their bylaws have the state of Michigan involved, because the owner was in Michigan at one time of that property. And since you're a lawyer, I don't know if you wanted to give that board some advice, number one. Number two, politically, it doesn't hurt to help other entities similar to us, special review district, because at some point we might want to look at them as being an asset to the Port of Coupeville to do something infrastructure wise. So I just threw it out there that you can respond back to it saying, hey, I don't want to help because it's not my expertise, or if you want to try to help, and just what I basically did, I directed her back to the Secretary of State's office, get them to help them figure out what's wrong with their bylaws.
I would be really, really reluctant. First of all, I'm retired. And secondly, my license is for Washington, D.C. and the federal courts.
Okay.
So I don't mind using my combined knowledge when I'm talking to organizations that I'm in, like Community Club and this organization. But to go outside that and start counseling people about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, I would really, really not want to do that. I am, however, willing to get them a call and see if there's something that some place that I can direct them to that might be able to provide, some resolution to what they're looking for. And I will do
I think
that.
I was just more interested in you being aware of them being a special review district like the port,
Sure.
Green Bank property is. And I think when I directed her back to the Washington Secretary of State to talk to them directly to solve their bylaw language, she was just ecstatic to say, yep, that's the way to go. So you're off the hook.
I can check in with her and find out how they're doing and establish a contact, but I'm not going to be providing any kind of legal stuff.
Understand. Okay.
Anything
Are we
else,
all set?
gentlemen? Well, in that case, we're at item number 17, which is adjournment. It's
Hi, guys.
it's 12:30. And I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See ya.
David, congratulations on your first meeting. Well done.
Oh, well, thank you. It's my 13th meeting actually, but because I was presiding officer once before, but
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
I needed to. It's